Hey guys, Courtney here. I've got some cash envelope DIYs and a dashboard DIY. I was gonna go ahead and make that, and I figured I'd just throw that in the video also. But these are the cash envelopes we're making, and I put my opening on the side where the rings are because these are actually not going to be cash envelopes for me. They're going to be sinking funds, so I'm not going to open them as much. And I figure that way I know all my money is going to be secure in there. But you can always put the opening wherever you want. But I'm going to be showing you the opening to the left. So this monstrosity is everything I used. I just made these on my computer on Word. They are 2.5 wide and 6 tall. And we just cut those out. And then same thing, this is for the dashboard. I'm putting this on the front of the dashboard so I can have that with me in my budget planner. Same thing, just made that on Word. So I've already got those cut out, so you don't have to watch me cut all that craziness. Cutting board, you can use scissors, any kind of cutting board, an X-Acto knife and a ruler would work. Any way to cut these, we're just cutting this stuff and then some scrapbook paper. So I've got scrapbook paper here. This is an 8x8 sheet and I just folded it in half. This is going to be for the envelopes. And then I have a 12x12 that again folded in half. And this is going to be for the dashboard, but I'll show you that later. And then I've got just some scrapbook paper, which is optional. It's not necessary by any means. Glue. I could not find my glue stick. Glue stick would probably be better. You can use a tape runner. You can use any kind of adhesive you want. This is what I've got right now, so this is what I'm using. A glue stick would probably be better. I didn't want to waste my tape runner because we're going to end up laminating the stuff, so it'll stick. So I don't need really good adhesive. I've got a Sharpie. It's a fine point Sharpie. An X-Acto knife. And then just some laminating sheets. And these are just the Walmart generic brand. I've got some Staple generic brand. These are 3 mil. With what I'm doing, I don't need the thickness. The mil is just the thickness of the laminating pages. I don't need the thickness. In fact, I prefer not to have the thickness because this is all going in a binder and it's going to get pretty thick on me. So, and that's without any cash in them. So thin is better for this project, in my opinion. So just going to jump right in and get started on it. Let me get this stuff out of my way. I'm just going to start on the cash envelopes. Now I measured these 7 by 3.5, and with an 8x8 scrapbook paper folded in half, you've only got to cut the length to 7 and then 3.5. I am putting mine in a binder, like a disc bound, or not disc bound, I'm sorry. If you're putting this in like disc bound, this is actually 7 would be perfect for like the mini happy planner. If you're putting this in a personal rings, which is what I'm putting it in, did not think about it previously, but you might want to do those to 6.75 tall. But I've already made them to 7, so I'm going to go ahead and do that for these purposes. I do like to use the folded edge at the top for the guide, because a folded edge is always straight. So if we use that as the guide, we should be straight. So these 8x8 scrapbook packs just made this super easy because I didn't have to cut as much off. Like I'm only getting a little bit of selvage here. And then we're just doing 3.5. So with the way I'm folding mine, okay, I want my opening to the left where the hole punches are. So I want my fold on the right. If you want it the other way, then you would do it this way. That way you open this way, but you can even open up top, whichever way you want to. It just depends on how you cut it once it's laminated. But this is the way I'm gonna do it. So the orientation is important just because I'm gluing this stuff on. This isn't important. This is just, for me, I'm gonna laminate it and then use Sharpie to write on it, whatever, as stuff goes in and out of these envelopes. And then that way I can just alcohol that off if I decide to change or something happens, whatever, and I'm not actually wasting paper ones all the time by writing on them. These will be reusable. So with the glue, be very, very shy with it. I'm just putting it on the 4 corners and that's it. I did one previously with too much glue. Tried to spread it on the whole thing, especially if you're doing wet. This is why I say the stick glue probably works a lot better. And honestly, this is probably too much glue. We just need to adhere it long enough for it to stay through the laminating sheets. Because the laminating sheets is what's going to stick it. So it's really not important. Anyway, I just eyeball that in the center. Kind of use 4 fingers, hold that down for a little bit. And not even that long. See, that one probably had too much glue on the edge. And I've got 2 others here already ready to go. You can fit 3 of these in a laminating sheet pretty well. And I found the best way to put these in here is to put one long ways down here, and I put my open edge on the closed edge of the laminating sheet. I'm sure everybody will tell you not to do that, but I'm just cutting that edge off anyway, and I always cut the rest of the edges shorter than what this edge will allow me to cut, so I'm just eliminating that for myself. But you can place them in here however you want. I was putting them 3 this way, but it made it really difficult putting it through the laminator. So I found this is the best way to get the best seal around all of it. It gives you the most room to cut and less room for error when you're feeding it in the laminator itself. So this is just a Scotch laminator. I think mine is a 12-inch one. I'm not even sure where I got it. I probably got it off of Amazon. But they sell them at Walmart. Scotch has been the best brand for me. I've used a lot. Scotch is definitely the best brand laminator. But you just feed those through. And I like to go ahead and run it through the laminator another time. And what's cool about this 12-inch one is I can actually, once it's sealed, I can run it the other way through. So if there's bubbles on the edges here or here, running it through the other way kind of eliminates that somewhat. So I'm just going to run that lengthways now. And if you don't have a 12-inch one, just run it through the same way you ran it through the first time. I just like doing it this way because I feel like you get more coverage in different areas that you wouldn't be able to if you keep running it in the same way. Plus it kind of runs in faster this way because your length isn't so long. So whenever that is done, we'll go ahead and cut those. So I just like to do my rough cuts first, meaning just getting all these bits separated from each other, and then worry about finely cutting around and getting close to the edges. So when you're cutting, you need to be careful. There's like little bubbles of the lamination. You can tell where the lamination isn't sealed as clearly. So you want to make sure you're cutting outside that point. And I kind of use that as my guide as where I get as close to that bubble as I can, because I don't like too much lamination around the side. So again, I'm just going to do that around 3 corners. You want to be really careful not to get too close to that edge. Now, if you remember, I said I wanted the left side to be the open side. This is where we're going to break that bubble. So we're going to get as close to that piece of paper as we possibly can to cut the lamination off, and then it will be open for us to use. And there it is, open. And I always like to take this finished product, run it through the laminator again if there was any parts around here that weren't sealed so well, because you kind of cut into it, it kind of reseals it. So I just redo that, and while that's going through, I cut another one. Same process, just be really careful how close I get. I always get super freaking close. So I've had that lamination peel up again, and then you're kind of like to point A again. So got to be careful with where you're cutting. And this is the side that I want completely gone and open. And again, that just went through the laminator. I told you sometimes it seals if you don't have the lamination cut. If it's not cut as close to that paper, sometimes when you run it through the laminator again, it'll reseal there. So after you run it through the laminator, make sure it's open. If not, you might have to cut on the edge again. So we're just making sure that's open, throwing that through the laminator again. Got one more to cut. And then they're done. It's super easy, especially with those 8x8 paper packs, because it really takes a lot of the cutting out of it. And that one opened. And throw that one through the laminator again. That one opens. So like I said, I'm putting these in a ring-bound personal sized planner. So I've got just one of these Agenda 52 ones. So I'm just going to go ahead and punch those and get that ready. And if you get one of these punches, play with it with scrap pieces of paper or something before you actually put what you're wanting in there, because it took me quite a bit to figure out the holes and the spacings, and especially since I made these a little taller than what a personal actually is. So there's those. There's the envelopes, and like I said, I plan on writing whatever category of my sinking fund is, writing how much I've put into the envelope, how much the balance is left on the envelope, in or out, with a Sharpie. And then if that changes for whatever reason, I can just alcohol that off and reuse them so that I'm not continually making new ones whenever that fills up. So those are the envelopes.